Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Helen. Okay. So, in the spirit of yes and, we talked about that yesterday and I think the day before, just spend a few minutes just thinking about how all of that landed for you. Yes, have a sip of hot chocolate. You have earned it.
Didn't drink it.
Yeah, think about how what you've just heard lands with you and what you're going to take from Kelly's beautiful story that will inform your life, your practice. So any thoughts? What's landed for you that you can say, yes, Kelly, and... Have we got a mic?
Some other mics coming out, I think.
I chose Bette Midler, Kelly.
There's a song in that too, isn't there?
And to now step further and stronger again now.
Say that again so everyone can hear.
I need to learn the lesson all over again, Kelly, at the moment, and it rang true.
Yes.
The voices have come back, but there's nothing like a strong heroine as a woman to give us a sense of focus and direction with which to
step into.
Tread the road. Tread the road, so thank you.
I'm seeing a musical here of all the different kind of actresses and songs that go.
Yeah, Kelly, I'm just remembering you use the analogy of the hills, you know, that there's always another hill.
Yeah.
So you have to be prepared to go there again.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that's...
Yeah.
Okay, lovely, thank you. Yes. A mic is on its way.
What did you notice, Anne, in that story?
Well, sorry, yeah, go for it.
Thank you, Kelly. I was just wondering if you were only allowed to give one piece of advice to all of us, what would that be?
To not stop seeking the magic in asking for help, and to keep asking until you find the help that really gels with you and what you need to achieve. And the help doesn't always come in the form of a person. It could be a book, a song, an actress or a role model. So look outside the square a bit and become creative around what that can look like for you. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that similarly to this lady, that's just really reinvigorated me with my own story. And I've been through patches where I can connect a lot with what you're talking about being your own hero. It's nice to hear it from the point of being your own leader as well. But it's just really so lovely to hear your story. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And I wish there was more of that. I wish there was a lot more of storytelling, because I find that for me that's a natural resource. I can tap into that and learn from that and really be lifted up and encouraged. So totally, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. And also the story is far more easier to tell with such wonderful questions and direction from Helen as well. So it's a real skill to have. So thank you.
I guess I noticed, as Kelly was telling her story, I was kind of connecting to it as somebody who has been responsible for providing services in the UK, and thinking, actually, Kelly was a gift to services, because she was reaching for that hero inside herself. Okay, maybe not at the beginning, but quite early on, you did the hard work with quite a lot of resistance from the system. The system wasn't set up to help you find your hero, to even get you to think about having a hero. You did that all yourself. And I thought, well, actually, you were a gift, you know.
But without that resistance, I wouldn't have called upon it or found it either.
And I guess I was thinking, you know, how can we work differently with people to engage with that?
To engage their hero.
The hero, yeah.
Their leadership.
To help people find their hero. We all have a hero, yeah.
It comes in that resistance space.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah, we're not going to give you a hero. Here you are,
Here's a
Kelly.
goal.
Here's your hero, right there. No.
Well,
Yeah.
the first thing that comes to mind for me is building on from othering, acknowledging the fact that you're both human. You're both going to have strengths, you're both going to have weaknesses, and you both have a superhero in yourselves. Really good metaphor, by the way. It's a very good image.
Thank you.
And just having the respect and not the assumption that you're the font of knowledge or I'm in the position of power. It has to be, well, you've come to me or you've been presented to this space for help and assistance. What can I do with you, not what can I do for you?
That's nice, yeah.
Yeah. I guess I was also thinking, what can we learn from Dr. Sanjeev? He brought the dad in him,
Yeah, he did.
not to be your dad,
No.
but to offer the skills that he had as a dad as something that could support you. He also came as a human being and sat with you.
Because it would have been so easy just to refer you, Kel, to a financial counsellor at that point.
Yeah.
I don't do that. That's
Yeah.
not my little box.
Yeah. So how do I show up in people's lives? That's something we've heard about quite a lot over these last couple of days. How do I show up? And it's effortful to really be present as the person that I am, not simply as a label that I carry. Yes, sorry, you wanted to say.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Kelly. That's been profound sharing. I think I relate now a story of our part of our story, how I had to learn a lot as being kind of the leader supporter for when my partner Michael went through his from terminal cancer back into life. And that kind of is the leadership, because I had to become the leader when not just he was diagnosed, but getting really, really sick, and through all the treatment. I think we had in all about 5 years of it. So I took care of everything. And isn't that so much what we need to sometimes do for our clients? But then as he was gradually getting better, I had to stay fluid enough to realize when to come out of it again. And I remember profoundly how often we had to be flown in and out of Melbourne for treatment and operations and everything with him. How then later on the checkup times, all of a sudden here we were once more in the unit and so forth, me doing my normal things to take care of him. And all of a sudden Michael was saying, I am not that sick anymore. I can do that now. I think it was about going back to the unit by himself or something like that. And that is when I learned a lot about leadership, of to stay fluid and clear enough. When is it my time to say something and when is it my time to step back and let the client come forward and take over again? So it's massive learning on my behalf when it is that close, especially. It's easy to override the client.
Yeah.
Anybody here that was doing the liquidity exercise with Helen and I earlier this week? Yeah? And we talked, didn't we, about am I a leader or am I a follower, and can you be both? And actually this notion of stepping into the space of being a leader and stepping into the space of being a follower. And it is a...
It's another both and.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah.
I'd just like to reinforce the storytelling as a natural resource idea, because I think for professionals, hearing about how other professionals might have behaved in an individual's life and how that's affected an individual and how that's what that's offered, and just different paradigms of working and seeing and existing. And I think storytelling is such a wonderful way to share that for both, for everyone that's trying to work in this way. So, yeah, that's just, for me, that's so important.
So there's a question then about, in our work, how can we bring storytelling in as a structure, as a kind of a mechanism that takes the stage, as opposed to kind of ways that don't serve us anymore?
I think so, definitely. I think so, definitely. But I think for me, I think absolutely in that micro level. But I think it also needs to be practiced on a macro level as well. And so this is kind of somewhere in between. But I think it's really important that storytelling and conversational models are only possible in relational situations if they draw you into a relational and relationship existence, and that's how you're going to be in equality, whether you're choosing to or not. So, but I think storytelling is such a human thing to do, but I really think it's important that it happens on that macro level as well. Yeah.
And I guess I'm thinking that, I think you're right. I think we do need to engage people in narrative and telling story as part of the process of sense making, and how we tend to want to go. And I think you're right. It is in that relational space. It's in that adaptive space that we've been talking about. But how swiftly we try and go to the fix,
Which is a transactional space.
which is transactional. And I guess I'm just reminded of the question that we've posed a couple of times this conference is, do you want it quick or do you want it right? That actually it's worthwhile just dwelling in that space because it takes you to a different place. And I was really struck by one thing you said, well, by lots of things you said, Kelly, but one thing you said was that you had to communicate with yourself through your journaling. And I think that was beautiful because I think sometimes we think of communication as only happening in the relationship with other, but actually it happens in relationship with ourselves. And I heard a lot in your story about how you kind of, you encouraged yourself to stand in a different space. And you used all sorts of resources to do that, all of which were natural resources in the main. And then you chose which service solutions might also help you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, beautiful. Any final thoughts? Yeah. You can have my microphone.
Thank you. Kelly, I'm really impressed with your story, and I think what hit home for me with you was that you can look back on it with with humour, with levity, which I think is really important when it comes to recovery. And it starts off small, but once you get that ball rolling and being able to express yourself through humour, I think that's a really amazing thing. So I'm so proud of what you've done for yourself because it shows everybody else what we can do.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess I was struck by quite a few things as you were talking, and about how you've managed to reflect on and I guess draw even more kind of personal learning from your own journey.
And each time, this is the first time I've shared this story publicly, but each time that Helen and I sat down and explored it, it became more familiar, it became more achievable again in the future.
So even preparing for this presentation is part of the process.
Yeah.
And I'm curious because, as you know, at some of our conversations well into the evening, I like to live my life as inquiry, standing in that curious space and trying to avoid taking things for granted, making assumptions. I guess I'm curious. You've been engaged in an appreciative inquiry here, right in front of us. Very, very brave. Is there anything that's come out of that process of the conversation, the inquiry, that you'd like to share with the group? Helen, do you want to?
I think sitting here in this space, I think your story, Kelly, kind of connects dots for me. Like it's kind of not a one-way transactional. I ask a question, you give an answer out there. Kind of your story kind of connects me back to my story, which connects to other people's story, and it's kind of the ahas are are mutual, but they may be different ahas. Just going, oh yeah, but I wouldn't have appreciated them in the context of sitting in a room coming up with them myself. It's only in this space of dialogue that I kind of get reconnected. And I think so many times we can see this as a one-way transaction, but the transaction's also back this way, and together we actually have different knowledges after this conversation. Especially I think for me, if I was to give some name to that, it would be about the creativity that I had probably not honoured enough in my own thing. So it's sparking off all these, I would never have named that if someone had asked me straight out about, what are the resources that you talked about. And so when Kelly's talking about her resources, I go, I could probably think some of that through and would not have come straight on as a transactional question.
Lovely. So a word that you used in your talk when you were talking, Kelly, was reciprocal. That something was different because it was reciprocal, and this notion of reciprocity is really important. That relationship is only a kind of a real relationship when there is this notion of reciprocity. I'm gaining as much from you as you are from me, and it will ebb and it will flow.
I think there's another really important thing sitting here. I kind of aspired to be a Denton one day, Andrew Denton, and I kind of got a little bit of a sense of holding it lightly, because if I was a clinician or a worker sitting in this chair, it would be I want Kelly's information to do something with it. But actually, I don't have any of Kelly's. It's the story that's the centre stage, and it's light. It's like, it's not. Do you know what I mean? It's like you haven't extracted it to do something with it it's a different agenda to start with. When you go into inquiry, when you go sitting here as a worker, the agenda could inadvertently I need to know that because I have a responsibility to do something with it, and it's no longer part of your story.
So honouring the story in the moment and dwelling on the story prevents you from going to the solution.
I'll just get you that house, Cal. Now I know that you need a house, and so I think kind of incarnating Andrew Denton for me is really important. It's not mine. My job is to help hear a story, not to do something with it. Martina's got someone.
Just wanted to say thanks so much, Kelly, for your courageous story and experience. And you spoke a couple of times there about the importance of having natural supports, and getting your experience here is obviously quite natural and raw, rather than some sort of pre-scripted professional response. And I think when you spoke a few times about the natural supports being so important, it reminded me a lot of my practice framework, because I'm finding sometimes that if I come in with a sort of a head full of stats and a head full of theories, I almost lose the participant. And I think just even the last few months in reflecting, I've found that just being quote unquote natural and sincere and trying to use any warmth I have in my personality seems to have more of a positive impact on the participants. And I was looking at some really interesting literature that's actually psychiatric literature, surprisingly, that's coming out of the Westmead School in Sydney around borderline personality, and they seem to be finding now too that the impact of the natural personality of the worker is having more of a therapeutic benefit on the participants than the actual training that someone actually has, just how that comes out in some way or another. So.
And if you go to lived experience narratives and research, they'll strengthen that even more, that it's not that people will say it's the relationship. It's who you are, not what you know and what you do to me, that I connect to.
Sure. And it's not a comfortable position to be in. It's Brené Brown, I don't know if you've heard of her, but talks about leaning into your vulnerability, and there is a space to share that and to both lean into vulnerability. And through that is a really in the moment, I guess, collaboration and something special.
So Kelly, in the process of preparing for this and the process of your co-inquiry, which was beautiful, anything that you're now reflecting on that is a kind of a yes and to yourself?
it's a yes and follow your instinct around follow your instinct and have confidence in that with experience comes knowledge, and with knowledge comes something to share and something to add to. And I appreciate Partners in Recovery for giving me the opportunity to do this. Yeah.
So I'm hearing you sort of saying, learn to trust yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Lovely. Any final points? Before I hand over to Andrew, who keeps standing up and sitting down again.
Just jumping back, just once to the shared experience. The thing that I find, and hearing John talk about his work, that for me, being someone who is asking a service for something, I've been through a process of taking a long time to sit with things inside myself which are very uncomfortable. And when I go into a service provider, it's a member of a service provider that is okay to sit with what's uncomfortable for me, and may have thought about how to sit with what's uncomfortable for them. And I think the word of dwelling is actually a really important one, and that the conversation and the humour model is kind of happens above the dwelling, but it allows a dwelling, and I think it's that shared dwelling that is actually really, really important. Because if it's finances of funding or a program or whatever it is, that's got to sit above the dwelling. If you don't have the dwelling initially, you're never going to be able to share that connection above that.
So is that again a both and? You need both and?
I missed the very first day, so I'm not exactly sure what that means, but if that's...
It's about being... We commonly in our lives hear and speak, yes, but. Yes, but.
Or either or.
Or we become binary.
Okay.
It's either that or
sure.
it's that.
Yeah, sure.
So it's standing into that both and, the yes and space.
We can have both.
We don't have to hold the binary position.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
I guess I'm curious, Kelly, just a final question from me. What would you say to the Kelly that you've described back at the beginning of your journey now, from your current, where you stand today? What would you say to Kelly?
I would say be patient, and what will come. And don't try and fight it or have to... Don't lose your high expectations as well around what you want and the
Trust
vision.
that they will come.
That they will come. Yeah.
Yeah, what's the phrase that you've used a few times? You're in the right place, you're making the right decisions.
You have what you need.
Yeah, you have what you need.
Yeah.
Lovely. Can we just thank Kelly and Helen once more?
Thanks, Helen. Thank you.